Thank you for choosing to download the first episode of the Whitmer Cast, produced by the John Whitmer Historical Association. My name is Catherine Pollock.
And my name is Rachel Killebrew.
First, what is the John Whitmer Historical Association? JWHA is an independent scholarly society composed of individuals who share a lively interest in the history of the Restoration Movement and Community of Christ.
So what is the Restoration Movement and the Community of Christ? Let's lay some cornerstones here. Restorationism, or Christian primitivism, used in our context, was a religious movement in 18th and 19th century America seeking to emulate or restore the original and ancient form of Christian religion. Groups such as the Shakers, the Baptists, Disciples of Christ, Seventh-day Adventists, and Joseph Smith's Mormon churches all came from this era of religious reformation and experimentation in early frontier America.
The last religious movement my co-host mentioned is the focus of the Whitmer Cast, Joseph Smith's religious legacy. But we can't discuss the Mormon phenomenon without the backdrop of the larger restorationist movement. Importantly, this is not a ministry or evangelism podcast. This is all about the history of religion.
With that foundational information, why Whitmer Cast? And what is the John Whitmer Historical Association? To answer that, let's start by talking about John Whitmer. He was born in August of 1802 in York, Pennsylvania. In 1829, Joseph Smith entered John Whitmer's life, shaping it from that point forward. Smith dictated much of the Book of Mormon in the Whitmer home, and John even briefly served as Joseph's scribe. After that, John, along with his brothers David, Peter Jr., Jacob, and Christian, were witnesses to the gold plates, and their names are found printed in the introduction to every Book of Mormon. This was just the beginning for John Whitmer, as the Whitmer family became some of the earliest converts to Joseph Smith's fledgling Mormon church, named the Church of Christ.
On March 8, 1831, just weeks before the first anniversary of the Church of Christ, John Whitmer received a special commission from Joseph Smith, which is found in the scriptures of most Mormon denominations. Quote, "Behold, it is expedient to me that my servant John Whitmer should write and keep a regular history, and assist you, my servant Joseph Smith, in transcribing these things which shall be given to you." End quote. From that point forward, John Whitmer became the first official church historian.
Nearly a century and a half later, a group of historians from one of the denominations of Joseph Smith's church, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now Community of Christ, paid homage to the legacy of John Whitmer by forming an educational historical society bearing Whitmer's name. On September 18, 1972, these RLDS historians and researchers officially formed the JWHA with 6 objectives.
1. To create a professional association that is predominantly Midwestern in focus, taking advantage of the associational and friendship networks of persons of RLDS background.
Number 2. To collect and preserve publications, documents, manuscripts, and other valuable materials relating especially to the history of the reorganization.
3. To facilitate communication among the various persons and agencies that serve the generic Mormon historical community. The LDS Church Historian's Office, the RLDS Church Historian's Office, the Mormon History Association, various public and private libraries that have and collect Mormon materials, especially in the Midwest, and the persons who write Mormon history, especially the history of the RLDS, the churches of the dispersion, and the early Midwest period of Mormon history.
Number 4. To draw into the fellowship of the association persons who may share many of its concerns, but not be themselves members of the reorganized church, especially such persons who live in the Midwest.
5. To infuse the spirit of renewal in the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the larger fellowship of Christians, into the work of historians of Mormonism and the perspective which they carry into their work.
To enhance and facilitate the marvelous and fruitful association which has developed in the past few years with many friends in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
In keeping with this mission statement and list of objectives, John Whitmer Historical Association has held annual meetings, published a semi-annual journal, and facilitated communication across denominational lines for nearly half a century.
With all of that background, let's talk about this podcast and what you can expect. Keeping consistent with the former list of objectives, each episode of Whitmer Cast will focus on research, resources, and opportunities in the restoration history world. We intend to bring you panel discussions, prepared essays, interviews with authors and researchers, and broadcast of special events related to restoration and the broad umbrella of Mormon history. We'll strive to create content that is accessible to anybody new to this world of Mormon and restoration studies, but we'll also do our best to keep the veteran historians entertained while we're at it.
All of the hosts are longtime members and attendees of JWHA, as well as the annual conference, and we love the presentation so much we can't help but get a little dose of the months between conferences. We'll provide the latest cutting-edge research in the field and try to emulate the incredible sense of community fostered for decades in the Mormon history sphere.
If you're new to restoration studies and Mormon history, we encourage you to consider attending one of the many annual conferences like those presented by the Mormon History Association and Sunstone Theological Symposium. But of course our favorite is, and always will be, the John Whitmer Historical Conference, held in September every year. More information is available at jwha.info, where you can also find past issues of the John Whitmer Journal and sign up to be a member of the association. We want to thank you for tuning into the Whitmer Cast. This podcast is produced with the help of Bryce Blankenagel, Catherine Pollock, Jill Brim, Joe Geisner, Catherine Hill, and Rachel Killebrew. John Whitmer Historical Association is an educational nonprofit institution with Krista Mackay as our president. For more information, visit jwha.info, where you can meet our team and join the association, read past issues of the JWHA Journal, and get updates on upcoming conferences and events. Our theme music is I Love to Tell the Story, composed by Tom Moraine. This podcast is a production of the John Whitmer Historical Association, copyright October 2021, all rights reserved.